completed the journey, the liberation trail, which we started at Kagitumba and through Murindi up to the parliament here. The most important for you to note is that the liberation trail doesn't end up at parliament here. It continues. It continues because the struggle itself for liberation is a continuous journey. The contributions you will make on your own part as youth, as the next generation, will also form part of this liberation trail. It will also go into the history of this country as part of your own contribution, because liberation means socio-economic transformation of Rwanda, which is an ongoing process, which is an ongoing journey, and which is transgenerational. It is passed on from generation to generation. The generation which started the liberation struggle at Kagitumba in 1990, of course, has been reinforced by other generations, time after time. So, truly, it's now your turn as the next generation of this country to take on the mantle of this liberation and make your own contribution. And it will also go into history. It will be judged. If you have succeeded, it will be appraised. If you have failed, it will also go into that history. Both ministers talked about the values that are critical for and form the basis upon which everything else we do is based upon. They talked of a number of values. I can only add and echo their words. The values of high level of patriotism, the values of high level of sacrifice, the values of selflessness, the values of discipline, the values of charisma and brevity, the values of resilience, the values of economy of effort, using so little to achieve so much, and also sticking to the vision set by the leadership. All of these were central in guiding the RPA from 1990 until today, with an exceptional strong leadership that was central and is still central in fostering this country to where we are heading to. So 27 years down the road, when we talk of Rwanda being the second easiest to do business in sub-Saharan Africa, when we talk of Rwanda being the second most competitive in Africa to do business, when we talk about Rwanda being the safest place in Africa, when we talk about Rwanda being the 9th best place to be a woman globally, when we talk about Rwanda being the 7th most effective government, when we talk about Rwanda being among the 5 topmost countries to contribute to peace and security through peacekeeping missions, these are achievements that have been reached within just 27 years after genocide. So it means that with what has been built, with what foundation has been put in place, moving forward is not difficult. It is not difficult because, as you saw from the liberation trail, I think people must have tried to explain to you what happened from 1990, starting with the setbacks of 1990, in the first week where the RPA lost a number of leaders and soldiers. It was not an easy journey, but it was overcome through a strong and exceptional leadership that took over the leadership of the struggle. So the liberation trail takes you up to the stopping of genocide, up to rebuilding this nation, up to military integration, up to unity and reconciliation, up to building institutions, up to the reconstruction of the economy. So it is a very long journey that embodies quite a lot of things, but it has all been done by individuals through commitment, through keeping focus to the vision set by this country, the leadership of this country, and you as the youth that are ready to take over and move on this country to the next step have no excuse whatsoever of failure. I think failure is not something that we should even think about, because looking at the insurmountable challenges that the country has gone through and overcome them and moved on and even achieved what seemingly looked impossible, this should give us great courage. It should give us, impetus to work even harder. The ministers have talked so much about it. I can only echo the same and say we are proud of the youth today, because even taking from what you've done on your own to take the initiative and come around, have this urge, pay your own money, pay your own tickets, it's so encouraging and so promising. As we went through the liberation trail, maybe people who explained it to you must have not exhausted everything, but we can open up here, ask as many questions as you want, just to fill the gaps that maybe were not explained enough to you during the whole journey that you went through for the last maybe two days. So I thank you, and we can take up your questions.
Mwiriwe neza, njye nditwa Gasore Fabrice, tuye mu Bubiligi, j'ai 33 ans. J'ai une question en particulier pour le général Gen.Kabarebe. Comment pouvons-nous combattre le négationnisme à notre niveau, tout en sachant qu'avec le soutien du chairman Eric, nous avons commencé un projet qui s'appelle Inale News, qui a comme but de propager l'actualité positive du Rwanda, parce que comme vous l'avez remarqué, quand on clique le nom Rwanda, surtout dans les médias francophones, ils ont l'habitude de propager malheureusement des fois des mensonges. Donc j'aurais aimé savoir si vous avez des conseils ou des avis à nous donner. Merci, Asante.
Yes. Every phase of liberation has its own challenges. The first phase of liberation was confronted with physical fighting directly with people who are armed. During the liberation struggle, during the campaign to stop genocide, this is the physical fighting. So this particular phase of liberation confronts many other challenges, including remnants of genocide that keep on, this time, mudslinging the government, talking bad about the government, using social media, using whatever forums, just to talk bad about the government. So this is a very difficult part of the liberation struggle, where somebody just sits somewhere on his gadget, and just writes any rubbish to feed into the public. during this phase, this is where you come up as the youth. This is where you are expected to play your own role, because you don't lack the content, you don't lack information about your country. It's open source, it's everywhere. If there is any country that communicates about itself, about its achievements, about what it's doing to the population, it's Rwanda. So the information is out there. The content is out there. But what we have not seen coming forth is our youth, taking up this fight and vigorously fighting to defend their country using the same platforms that the destructors are using. They are using internet, you have internet. They are using social media platforms, you are always there. So you are not lacking in any way. And you should not wait to be called upon to tell you to fight for your own country. No, you are there. You should be doing it day and night. If they post concoctions and fabrications about your country, lies about your country, you know the truth about your country, you have information. You can even ask wherever you are. You have the embassies, you have communities, you have the diaspora, you have all of these organizations. You can, on your own, take upon this fight and fight it seriously, and you will defeat them. At least you say the good things, they will not stop saying the bad things, but at least you will have also fed the public with the right things. So this is another phase of the struggle that was expected. Usually after the defeat of the genocidaire, it is expected that they will go out there and start, another form of campaign. But the response is expected from you. You have to come up and defend your country. You have the content. You know the country. You have the information. If you don't have it, you know how to find it. But you shouldn't sit by and just lament that some negative people are talking bad about your country. You should just come up and make adequate responses, because you are even better placed than them. So this is expected. It is expected that after genocide, the remnants of the genocide ideology and the executors of genocide and other criminals will join together and fight the government using social media, using other forms of media and other platforms. But it is another phase that we also should not leave them to dominate. How do we leave them to dominate this space when we have all it takes to make them quiet or respond to them, or even not necessarily responding to them, but even informing the world about your own country, about the good of your country. If, for example, you only picked up to write the good you have seen since you came around, if you have been posting about it, that's good news. So whoever will write anything bad about Rwanda, the good you have written will counter the negative aspects of those who are trying to, write negative about your country. Thank you.
Nitwa Aline Byusa, mfite imyaka 33, ntuye Liège mu Bubiligi. Ikibazo cyanjye ndashaka kukibaza Gen.Kabarebe James. Ndakivuga mu Cyongereza kugira ngo n'abagenzi banjye bacyumve. Ariko mbere na mbere, I would like to thank RPF Inkotanyi, spearheaded by His Excellency P.Kagame, for their patriotism, heroism, zeal, and determination to brought all of us Rwandan identity and dignity. And I also thank the government of national unity for the effort in empowering youth in different areas, including leadership, etc. So since Rwandan youth are cornerstone of Rwanda development, This is emphasized by the fact that our country has been liberated by youth, even they were younger than we are here today, we aged here today. So my question is, do you find today's youth promising and reliable enough to carry on the mission of building the country and sustain what has been already achieved, and also achieve and working toward achieving Vision 2050? As recently, Gen.Kabarebe emphasized that liberation trail continues. Thank you.
My name is Yuhi Cesar. I am 18 years old and I'm a second-year student studying political science and international relations in Toronto. And my question is directed towards General Kabarebe. In the third phase of the Liberation Trail, we visited the Murindi headquarters where they spoke about, well, they mentioned your name a few times, but they never got into any detail as to your contributions towards the liberation struggle. So my question would be if you could quickly elaborate on your role in the liberation struggle and also how you see the future of the Rwanda Defense Force now that the liberation struggle is gone and the future of defense in this country.
My role at Murindi or during liberation is a collective one. We worked as a team. We worked as a team, we worked as a force, we worked together. Each one played his or her own part just to contribute to the war effort. So my role is just, it is collective. It is collective. But Murindi itself is significant because in the third phase of the liberation struggle, Murindi became the capital of the RPF, where the RPF, the RPA, had their headquarters. Murindi was captured around, it was in June, the first week of June in 1992. And the commander of the RPF, the RPA, His Excellency, established his command center there and the headquarters. So everything was planned around Murindi. And it's where the orders to stop genocide were given. The forces moved from Murindi area to come and stop genocide in 1994. So it has its own significance. A lot of activities took place in Murindi. For the future of the RDF has never changed or will not change its character. It is a force that sees itself as a liberation force, and at every stage of liberation will get involved into the activities that will foster the socio-economic development of this country. During the war, the RDF is capable of fighting and winning wars, and it has no history of ever losing a war. And during peacetime, the RDF will contribute to peace and also to socio-economic development of the country. The major activities today are to secure the country, to contribute to socio-economic development. They participate in almost all activities of the development of this country. And also international peacekeeping, like the Minister of Foreign Affairs said. But the RDF positions itself to continue the vanguard of liberation of contributing to the socio-economic development of Rwanda. And it does not change its form and character. It retains those qualities, those values that they had since the time of liberation. So if you visit, for example, Kinigi, you will visit the model village they have just completed, the RDF contributed. A very nice model village. And every year, there are a lot of activities the RDF does, together with the population. The RDF does not distinguish itself from the population, from the people. It's a force that comes from the people, and it is still attached to the population, working together on a day-to-day basis for the development of this country. It is different from the colonial force that was always kept in military barracks and feeding off the population, the taxpayers' money, clothed, armed, treated, fed, to be kept in barracks, just doing nothing. But the RDF during peacetime is involved in all these other activities, socio-economic activities of the country. It's part of the population. It gives out to the population, be it in afforestation, in terracing, in agriculture, in so many activities. And of course, with its major mission of protecting the nation. On the question of Ngabo, about the second phase of liberation, I think the place you visited should be Gikoba. It's a Gikoba, and it has its own significance also, because in the phases of liberation, the first phase was reorganization. There was the attack of Kagitumba in 1990. In that very first week, there were a lot of setbacks, losing of many top commanders, including Great General Fred Guijema and many others, and many soldiers also, and being defeated by the government forces then, because when the RP attacked on the 1st of October 1990, on the 4th of October, the French were here. They were flown in. Their special forces were flown in from Central African Republic in Bangui, and they came to support Habyarimana's forces. On the 5th of October, Mobutu sent his division, protection division, Division Special. They came also to support the Habyarimana forces. So with the setbacks that we encountered in the initial stages, the RPA was almost defeated, or almost disorganized, totally disorganized, until His Excellency came in the second week and organized the force afresh, and relaunched the force afresh into war, because initially we had been defeated. So his first phase of the war was a mobile warfare. He organized the RPA into a mobile warfare, conducted his war into mobile warfare, moved the force into Virunga Mountains. Then from Virunga Mountains, around mid-1991, he established his headquarters at Gikoba, where you saw. And this time, he fought a positional warfare by holding territory. It was a very small territory, surrounded by government forces, fighting day and night to remove the RPA from there. So His Excellency instructed all commanders and all soldiers to dig trenches, He constructed his own trench, the one you saw. He brought all senior commanders, showed them the trench, and instructed all of them to dig trenches for every soldier, meaning that no soldier this time will run away when the enemy fires, but will stay entrenched into the trench and fire back to the enemy. So that place has its own significance, because the government forces launched multiple offensives to dislodge the RPA from that very place, but failed. One of the operations, a well-known one, was called Opération Latissage. Opération Latissage, I don't know what Latissage means in French, but it could be maybe, Latissage means what, Minister? Okay. At one time, they launched Opération Latissage from August 1991 to December 1991. For 3 months, there was fighting day in, day out, without resting. So until they failed to remove the RPA from that very position you saw. Where that trench is, the enemy was just in less a kilometer from there, surrounding the RPA. But the RPA stayed. That's the resilience we talk about when we talk about the resilience of the RPA. And By May 1992, the government forces had given up on attacking the RPA because whenever they attempted, they lost everything. They lost the war, they lost the people, they lost the equipment. And the RPA gained a lot of experience, gained a lot of equipment. And from there, from Gikoba, in fact, the importance of Gikoba, that very trench you saw, is where the meeting that planned the attack on Byumba and Murindi took place. His Excellency called in all senior commanders, briefed them on how the RPA would leave parts of Gikoba, of that area, to go and attack Byumba. What I remember very well is that most senior commanders were not favorable with that. They were not comfortable with that because their argument was that, Your Excellency, we have resisted in this small part, we have captured it. If we leave it to go and attack Byumba, we shall lose this very place and we shall also lose Byumba. So we shall be nowhere again. Then His Excellency challenged them. He told them, so did you launch this war to come and stay in this very particular place? Is it what you are fighting for? Is it what you fought for? Did you fight to come and stay here? His second argument was that if you go to attack Byumba, why do you think the enemy will stay here doing in Gikoba? What will the enemy want in Gikoba when you have attacked Byumba, which is, more important to the enemy than Gikoba? So, of course, this shows one thing, that at every stage, it's the leader that takes the decisions, but also takes, the lead in everything, that takes on what would happen in the next phase. So he convinced them. He convinced the commanders, even those who had some fear. They abandoned their fear, and we moved to attack Byumba in June 1992. Just like His Excellency had said, when the RPA, the bigger force of the RPA left Gikoba to attack Byumba, of course the government forces did not come to Gikoba or to attack Gikoba. Instead, they went to defend Byumba, just like His Excellency had anticipated. So that's how the RPA ended up into the third phase, capturing a bigger territory ranging from Musanze, Butaro, that is Burera today, Gicumbi, and then Nyagatare. So the RPA expanded the territory just from a very small territory of Gikoba where you saw that trench. So that very place has its own significance because it saw the RPF expand the territory and capture a larger territory and moving the headquarters from that very place in Gikoba to Murindi. So that's why this phase, the second phase of liberation of Gikoba, is really very, very important. Secondly, all along during the mobile warfare situation, the then government of Habyarimana had denied that the RPA doesn't exist on the Rwandan territory. But with holding on in Gikoba, entrenching in Gikoba, of course, the RPF proved that it was on Rwandan territory and Habyarimana could no longer deny it. And that's why the Arusha negotiations, were initiated and discussions maybe started, taking a serious, being taken seriously. So it's a very important phase of the struggle, and Gikoba particularly is significant for that. Let me start with the question about what has been done to prevent attacks in Inyungwe, if I got it well. Maybe the person who asked the question does not even have the background to the attackers of Nyungwe. Let me briefly give him the background. The force that committed genocide here in 1994 shifted to the neighboring country of Zaire then and then Congo today. They formed the organization called ARIR. From ARIR, they changed the name to FDLR. When ARIR was registered international as a terrorist organization, they changed the name to FDLR as one organization that was launching attacks into Rwanda, the insurgents of the northwest. You remember from the 1990s, 97, 98, until 2001. So this organization of the genocidal forces is based in the Eastern DRC. Over time, because of their old divisive politics, they divided themselves into two groups based on where they come from. Those who think they come from northern Rwanda, northern part of Rwanda, calling themselves Abakiga, they divided themselves and stayed FDLR. Those who think they come from the southern part of Rwanda, calling themselves Abanyenduga, led by Rusesabagina and somebody called Wilson Rategeka, moved southwards into South Kivu, and then through Burundi, they attacked Rwanda through Nyungwe. So the very old divisive politics of theirs set in, and they divided themselves along the lines of the different, what they think makes a difference between themselves. So those who came through Burundi have been attacking through Nyungwe, but the major force of theirs, the biggest force of theirs that stayed inside the DRC was fought and defeated by the Congolese forces, and they were handed over to us, maybe around 330 elements of them, and just a few of them sneaked into Burundi and continued attacks through Nyungwe forest. But over time, they have been degraded, they have been weakened, and of recent, the Burundi army itself has been attacking them and even capturing them. So we could say they are in their last phase of existence. That's what I can say. They are in the last phase of existence because their main force in South Kivu, in DRC, was defeated. Those who survived were handed over to us. They are here in Mutobo or have been integrated into the community. And those who sneaked through Burundi have been defeated by the RDF in Nyungwe, went back to Burundi, and Burundi's forces themselves have been hunting them down until today. So they are in their last phases of existence. The last question was about, is there a point where we lost hope? There is a point where many of our fighters lost hope, but not all of them. That is the period in the first 2 weeks of 1990, when we lost many commanders, many soldiers, and lost the war also, and lost the war. That is the point at which His Excellency came in and reorganized the force, restructured it, boosted its morale, changed the military strategy, military tactics, and, we gained morale and gained effort, and changed, into becoming a better force, even better than the force who were fighting. So at that point in 1990, many of our soldiers lost hope. Some deserted, went back to where they came from. Others were just demoralized. But some of the people, some of the individuals stayed strong. That's why when His Excellency came, he found people ready to continue the struggle. Under intense and severe circumstances, definitely you will have people lose hope, especially when they didn't expect to meet such problems at the front line. Most of them, wherever they came from, thought it was an easygoing venture, but it was not easygoing. It involved shedding blood, it involved losing lives, it involved staying without food, without water, without any help. But with the strong leadership, of course, everything was overcome, and of course, people gained hope. It did not take so long. By the second, third week of 1990, the RPA was capturing Gatuna, so there was so much hope, and the war did not stop. And in many of the encounters with the enemy, the RPA was winning all the time. So it is at that particular point, in the first 2 weeks of 1990, when most of our fighters almost lost hope, but hope was restored when His Excellency came and took over, briefed the soldiers, restructured them, assured them, and changed their military tactics from the conventional, which was not conducive at the time, into guerrilla tactics. So hope was restored, and it continued to grow, no problem.